Hey kids, Englentine here. Found this article about sexual harassment at comic conventions and figured since it's a touchy subject, I want to get my point of view out there right up front so there's no questions. Because this is one of those things where they say, toe the line. And if you go, well, just the word well marks you as somebody who hates women, wants them barefoot, pregnant, in the kitchen, yada, yada. You heard the deal. Well, anyway, here it is, and it's very simple. Don't touch. Easy peasy. Don't touch. Also, don't be rude. If a woman in a Wonder Woman costume has a nice rack, you know what? You don't have to tell them. It's not going to get you a date. And it doesn't serve any purpose other than to what? Make you feel good? Make them feel bad? It doesn't make sense. Second, ladies, if you're in a Wonder Woman costume, guys are going to look at you. It's just the rule. We like to look. If you're in a jeans and if you're in a sweatshirt and we see a lump, we're going to be like, "Ooh, nice." Guys, look. We are visual creatures. So if you're dressed like Psylocke, or if you're dressed in, what was it? Adrienne Curry beat up a guy when she was holding a whip dressed as Catwoman, and her friend was in a bikini dressed as Tigra. Now, they said a guy harassed them, and you know, if it's a guy, then that's actually impressive. It was only one, but the fact is, if you're just looking, you're going to look. Adrienne Curry's dressed as Catwoman and some hot girl is dressed like Tigra. Yeah, it's going to be looked at. Anyway, this is where I discovered the survey. It started off as a bleeding cool thing, sexual harassment at fantasy cons and within publishers, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, he gives a link to the survey and the results. So I said, screw that. I'm not going to ride his coattails, and I'll check out the survey myself. Anyway, it was started by an author named Jesse Nivens. It starts off pretty simple. What is your age? It asks for gender, and yes, I noted that it says non-binary and other also, but I chose to ignore it. Are you a writer, editor, agent, or fan? And I noticed no artist. And then how many conventions do you attend each year? Alrighty, I guess that's important for how many times you get. I don't know. And have you personally encountered sexual harassment online? And if you've been sexually harassed at a convention or otherwise in person, please detail your experience. And just remember, it's anonymous. In your experience, how effectively do conventions follow up on their policies, if any? And at first glance, it's a straightforward survey. It's, it's just asked, have you ever felt sexually harassed? And, how do you feel it was handled? But it's got one glaring flaw. What's sexual harassment? I mean, once again, I told you what I thought sexual harassment was, but the survey does not. There's no, well, is touching sexual harassment? Is looking sexual harassment? So really what may be to one is not the same to others. Now, you could say, well, I'm a male, therefore I don't understand what it's like to be looked at. Thank you, that hurt. In the end, what it boils down to is for either party to not understand the difference between the benign and the malicious. What may be malicious to some might be benign to others. But you have to basically know your audience. Like I said, always ask it before taking pictures. That's one of my rules. But some people might consider me asking someone to take a picture as sexual harassment. And that runs counter to what a lot of cosplayers want. They work hard on their costumes. Or in some cases, like the young lady you see right here, they're introverts in the outside world, but they come to MegaCon in this case to stand out, to be somebody else, to have their picture taken, and to be the fun way they wish they could be every day when they feel too shy to be. Anyway, getting to the results, sexual harassment in the science fiction and fantasy community survey results. And this was published September 4th, so yesterday. The science fiction and fantasy community has a problem: sexual harassment and sexual predation by men. Well, I've heard of a few women also. One of the problems is that the stigma for a woman touching a man is not the same as the other direction, so a lot of that goes unreported as well. So anyway, it says, I put up a survey recently on the subject, and you saw the survey. The results, while not surprising, were nonetheless sobering. Of 802 respondents, 24% had been sexually harassed at a convention, 35% had witnessed sexual harassment at a convention, and 40% had a family member, friend, colleague who had been sexually harassed at a convention. Now, the differences here make me wonder, because 40% is so much higher. Either one, people aren't reporting their own, or two, it seems like maybe somebody wants to be that guy. Oh, well, not me, but a friend of a friend, just so they could be part of the conversation. The numbers for the online community were worse. 32% had been sexually harassed online, 65% had witnessed sexual harassment online, 45% had family member, friend, colleague who had been sexually harassed at a convention. Okay. Are they, well, it's online versus convention, so that number right there is immediately mooted because, yeah, maybe they meant to say online, but because they made the mistake. The respondents' detailed description of their experience graphically described the problem of the 336 people who responded to the request for details about their experiences. 180 had been the victim of verbal harassment. 117 had been the victim of physical harassment, groping. 16 had been the victim of threats of rape or violence. Now, that should have been reported. 3 had been victims of man masturbating themselves in front of respondent, in each case a woman. And 1 had been a victim of sexual assault at a convention, which we should be hearing about arrests right away. And now we all hear stories about the victim feels shame, so they don't report it. And I would really like to see that shift over. The person who had something happen to them shouldn't be ashamed. The person who did it, that's the person we shame. So we got to give strength to those who've been attacked, so they're more apt to come forward, because without that, these people aren't going to be stopped. And if you're a witness to a physical assault, then by all means offer up that you can be a witness to it. Say, hey, if you want to report this, I will go with you and I will say. And everybody's got a camera out. Take video and picture. Make sure that there's evidence of it. In many cases, the harassers are prominent figures. The award winner who likes to use his fame as a lever with which to lure underage women to his hotel room for sex. The best-selling author who likes to lure young women and underage women into his hotel room for BDSM sessions. When confronted about this behavior, he claims that since there's no penetration, it doesn't count as statutory rape. I got news for you, kids. He doesn't get to be the judge of that if he's brought up on charges. Other people get to be the judge. Jesus Lord. See, this is the kind of thing that is not average convention-going stuff. That is stuff that needs to be reported. Okay, I'm sorry. Where was I? Oh, the award winner who imitates Isaac Asimov's serial groping behavior. The award winner. Well, okay, he's not here to defend himself. Come on. The award winner who uses his fame to pressure young women to sleep with him. The anthology editors who demand sex from female authors in exchange for being published in the anthologies. The small press owner who demands sex from female authors in exchange for being published by the press. The editor who targets children. Really? Let me ask you, person who witnessed this. Why is that person not in jail? Why is he not even brought up on charges? Or she, because there's no sex to the editor, as far as we know, based on what we're reading right here. This might stem from a cult of personality thing, where you see somebody who creates the comic books and you somehow put them on a pedestal. They're just workers. So if they do say something violent, don't just bring it up to them. Go over their heads. Make sure that somebody knows what is lurking in the corners of the comic book company. I mean, if they're attacking children, if they're threatening people, if they're assaulting, that has to be brought up. In some cases, the harassers are known within the industry and to their colleagues to be harassers, but no action is taken against them. One book editor harassed his authors. Complaints to the editor's superiors were not forwarded on to the publisher's human resources department, and nothing was done to prevent the editor from continuing to harass his authors. Okay, so maybe complaining to the top doesn't help as much, but you should still do that, and if that doesn't work, go to the media. Go to us. Go to me, Diversity, Frugal, Cummings. Let us get the story out. Now, let's face it seems like Cummings and Diversity are waging war against the editors for far less than this, so I'm sure they'll step up. That being said, I would like to point out one huge problem with the article and the bits we just read. It's a lot of anonymity. I can't say that word. But the point being is we don't know how much of that is true. I could tell you about the skeptic community now. There's one that likes to skin bears naked while roller skating. There's another one that likes to smoke baby dust. There's another one that likes to go deep sea fishing diving for cats. You know, it's just, I can make up anything because, one, it's anonymous, and two, I'm not saying which is which. So there is that. We do have to take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying that an online poll is completely anonymous, so you can make up whatever you want. Some of the victims of harassment refuse to go to specific conventions anymore, whether because of that convention's weak anti-harassment policies, the weak response by the convention staff to complaints about harassment, or because a harasser is a regular participant of that convention. Some victims refuse to go to any convention now because of their negative experiences. Some of the victims are no longer comfortable at conventions unless they are in the presence of a male partner or friend or group of friends. And some victims have developed PTSD as a result of being harassed. Now, that is definitely not what we want. I said in videos before that conventions are generally, of course there's always exceptions to every rule, but conventions are generally the most accepting places of all. But you do have assholes everywhere. And like I said, you have to define what we're talking about here. What is harassment? And they still have not yet done that. And the article goes on to say solutions to this problem are not simple. Both Wisconsin and ReaderCon were the sites of recent notable cases of harassment, and both toughened up their policies and procedures as a result of their initial failures to properly handle the situations. But it is arguable that convention policies are better at punishment than prevention. Ultimately, what is going to solve the problem of harassment is, first, the strict enforcement of anti-harassment policies by conventions, still a problem, as some convention organizers and runners feel that to publicize the anti-harassment policies is to make more of the problem than it is. And I can see the point. You don't want to mess up the fun. You don't want to have an overcorrection of sorts. You know, somebody saying, well, because these are the costumes that have the most harassment towards them, we can't have that kind of costume here, because some people might want to dress like Harley Quinn in a tight leotard. And then where does it end? You know, you have the young lady dressed as Tiger in a bikini. Okay, we're going to stop sexy costumes. Well, what's sexy? Harley Quinn in a full-body unitard, that's still sexy. A lot of people find that to be sexy. You know, so what you may call out as, hey, well, we should stop that, to somebody else, it's not, but they're going to be swept up as well. So we really have to be careful as far as all of this, and I can understand convention runners have to understand they have to be careful as well before there is that overcorrection that can wipe the fun right out. And we continue that they have to realize that one-size-fits-all anti-harassment policies don't allow for nuance and personal judgment in dealing with cases of harassment. Meaning, of course, well, I don't mind if you put your arm around me from someone will still result in a penalty if it's a one-size-fits-all. Second, more victims must report harassment after it happens. Abso-freaking-lutely. There are obvious reasons why victims of harassment don't come forward, feeling shock and shame at what happened, feeling that they won't be believed or taken seriously, feeling that nothing will be done about it, feeling that the anti-harassment policies won't do enough, and feeling that conventions won't handle their complaint in a sensitive and understanding fashion. Thirdly, and most importantly, are more witnesses. You know, we have to step in. I'm not going to read all of this because it goes to one particular sex right away. You know, it jumps down the men's throat. It says especially more men. Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's anybody who sees this. It doesn't mean especially anybody, especially everybody who sees something like this. And I'm talking about real harassment once again. Not some guy looking, but somebody touching, somebody, you know, forcing. That needs to be reported. Many of the survey's respondents told stories of being harassed in public and no one stopping the harassment or letting the harasser know that what they're doing was unacceptable. It says men in particular are reluctant to stop other men from bad behavior, but once again, before that, it said no one was trying to stop it. So everybody around was not. And then it goes on to say this needs to end, and I agree with that. Men must be more proactive in everybody has to be more proactive in preventing harassment from taking place and stopping harassment when it occurs. I don't care about this whole bit about, oh, they do it and they do it and they do it. Everybody needs to stop this kind of thing. Or here's something easy. If you feel like grabbing some girl's butt because she's dressed like Starfire, sit down, take deep breaths, and rethink your whole life up to that point. I mean, that's what you need to do. Everybody needs to take personal responsibility. Are you the victim? Then do something to your attacker. Are you an attacker? Why are you an attacker? What the hell makes you think that person, that just because a girl dressed like Rocky from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, that she was waiting for you to come by and grab her boob? Or say something lewd? Or what if that guy who just so happens to have, he's Joe Six-Pack, literally, and you walk up and you rub your hand down his chest. Maybe he's got a girlfriend, doesn't want it. Like I said, it's a lot more stigma to touching the women than it is to men, and men get that kind of stuff all the time. Shit, I'm fat and ugly, and I got it at Universal all the time. But, you know, not as much. Not as much as when I was a younger guy. But anyway, yeah, it all comes down to personal responsibility. Stop yourself. Take your responsibility. If you're attacked, yeah, I might sound like blaming the victim, but if you don't go forward, then yeah, I blame you for not bringing it up. Bringing it up 6 months later in somebody's survey doesn't help anybody. Bring it up right then. If somebody grabs you, turn that phone on and start asking them why they did it. That's just one way you can catch these guys. I always go to guys also, so apparently there is a stigma. Anyway, at this point I'm spinning wheels. That was the whole thing right there. And like I said, it's an interesting subject, and I think it isn't something we should brush under the rug. Conventions are a very inclusive place, and we should make them fun for everybody. If you want to take a picture, ask. Most people in cosplay will say yes very quickly. Some people might just be tired, or they really want to get to shopping because it's the last few hours and they've taken so many pictures, but they haven't been able to shop or anything. You know, they've got their reasons. But you should ask first. Never put your arm around anybody without asking. I never do, anywho. I just figure it's kind of rude. Plus, I got a wife, you know. But anyway, at this point, I'm spinning wheels. What do you think about this whole thing about sexual harassment at the conventions? And mind you, keep the language down. But I would love to hear your opinions, because I know it's not as black and white as everybody wants to think. Some people are like, hey, yeah, if you say anything against what I'm saying, or if you say, well, you know, the person who's a victim needs to go forward, you're blaming the victim, therefore you are a hater of women. It's not that simple. So what are your thoughts on the subject? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, you've heard the deal. Just click like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. And let's be honest, YouTube hates women. They've managed to demonetize every video I've made about a female superhero. Bombshells, Garage City Girls, Sheena, Patriotica, anything that has a cover with a woman on it, they have demonetized it. So I doubt that they're going to let an anti-sexual harassment video go. So please head on over to Patreon, head on over to VidMe, drop $1 into the till. Help us to make videos like this. Help us to make videos like this worth it. And certainly appreciate those who already did that, and appreciate those who will do that. And to everyone, thank you very, very much for watching.